Good evening and welcome to Story Hour. I'm tonight's host, Laura Blackwell. My delightful co-host, Marvelous Daniel Marcus, started Story Hour, over 2 years ago now, because he just wanted a place to hang out with his writer buddies and read stories to each other. And as time went on, we accrued more writer buddies and even some writers who we just kind of asked to come and read for us, although we weren't sure we could call them buddies. And we have had so many wonderful writers on, and it's been fantastic. This week we don't have Daniel, he's out, but we do have one of our returning writers, Marie Vibbert, and we conned Tim Pratt into joining us today too. So as our format goes, we have each one reading one or more stories for favored nonprofits. So if you can, please consider looking up these nonprofits and maybe sending a little something their way. Marie Vibbert is reading for the Cuyahoga Soil and Water Conservation District. The Cuyahoga SWCD implements programs and practices that protect and restore healthy soil and water resources. Cuyahoga SWCD is unique in providing services that focus on the soil-water connection. As communities continue to look at development opportunities, the Cuyahoga SWCD is able to provide valuable technical assistance that helps cities stay in compliance with their mandated Clean Water Act permits, while also assisting the development community with a better understanding of best management practice applications for stormwater pollution prevention. You can learn more at cuyahogaswcd.org. If Cuyahoga is as hard to spell for you as it was for me the first time I heard it, please do not despair. I will drop the link later in both the Zoom and the Facebook. Speaking of which, the Facebook isn't quite so closely attended as the Zoom. So the Zoom is really where we get to do most of our chatting with each other, especially in the chat window on the right. So you'll find the conversation there lively, but if you do leave us a comment on Facebook, we will come back and see it at some point. Tim Pratt is reading for Locus Magazine. Probably a lot of you didn't know it's a nonprofit, right? Yeah. Over the past 54 years, Locus has published more than 740 issues, keeping readers, authors, artists, book buyers, industry professionals, and fans up to date on what's happening in the field. The Publisher's Weekly of science fiction, fantasy, and horror literature. Its website archive holds thousands of reviews, news posts, and articles covering fiction, craft, art, conventions, international events, and more, chronicling the field. Locus is a nonprofit that relies on subscriptions, shrinking advertising budgets, and donations to keep publishing what matters to the science fiction, fantasy, and horror genres. You can learn more at locusmag.com and at a very long Indiegogo URL that I will make sure gets pasted into both of our locations. The Zoom window obviously goes away after the Zoom closes, but Facebook is, there pretty much permanently. So that link will be there. So those of you who are joining us on Zoom, feel free to leave your camera on. It can be really nice to see your faces. And chime in on that text chat if you like. And those of you on Facebook, hi. We'll be by to you later, promise. So our first reader tonight is Marie Vibbert. Marie Vibbert has sold over 70 short stories. Is it more than 70 now?
It's like, it's actually like 85, I think.
I had a feeling this bio needed updated because you sell stories so fast. Over 85 stories to professional markets, including 11 appearances in analog. Is it 12 now?
14, yeah.
14, oh my God. Her work has been translated into Chinese and Vietnamese and featured in year's best anthologies. Her debut novel, Galactic Hellcats, came out in 2021 and is about a girl gang in outer space rescuing a gay prince, and Publishers Weekly called it a rip-roaring space heist. By day, she is a computer programmer in Cleveland, Ohio. Marie, welcome back.
Hi, yeah, I know. It's always a great problem to have to keep updating your bio.
Terrible,
It's a
terrible to
terrible,
have,
terrible,
terrible to be doing
terrible
wonderful
burden.
things all the time. The hard
Yes,
burden.
I had another novel come out this year. It's called The Gods Awoke, and it's about a powerful telepathic alien who thinks she's a trickster goddess and kind of her journey of self-discovery. It's kind of a hard novel to pitch because I have to like give away the twist to make it make sense. But anyway,
It sounds like fun though.
Today I'm going to read to you one of my a particularly favorite story, which is called Bumble Bot. And this came out this year in Analog. And I'll just get right to it. This is the rare case of a story where my working title ended up just working because I came up with the title and then I just wrote it. I'm looking up that it came out in September of 2022. Okay. And now I'm just switching windows. Where'd it go? Come on, Word. Where'd you go up there? Okay. Bumblebot. I'm watching a robot bee bumble around on top of a hive. The robot bee has a helicopter fan sticking out of its butt and 6 stubs instead of legs. They aren't even articulated. They just bop up and down. Somehow this works. It wanders about and the other bees nuzzle it and walk away unconcerned. It's yellow, of course, with black stripes painted on it and fine plastic hairs to collect pollen. An eager graduate student named Hui Wen is explaining the bee to me. The pheromone perfume I painted on tells them she's family. I'm listening, but the words keep falling out the other side of my head. I'm too anxious. Our urban farm is failing. The hives are dying. It's pesticides. The shopping development on 55th swears it's not their doing, but I know the worker bee population dropped off right after they were spraying their sidewalk. An old oak tree is growing out of the ruined house across the street. It must have taken decades to grow out of that collapsed roof, but in my imagination, it burst forth one day like a chick from an egg. With guttural roars, a trio of motorcycles speed by on East 67th, heading to the house at the end of the block. The one with the repaired concrete apron and the white trellis against the porch. These guys are always coming and going, or sitting together on that porch, talking loud, like they can turn this empty neighborhood lively all on their own. It's one point of warmth between the wide-spaced street lamps, whose broadcast power was supposed to bring business to the area. These new lamps are sterile and too blue. Hui Wen looks nervously at the bikers, losing her train of thought. She tugs the sleeves of her yellow cardigan. I'm wondering if the robot bee is inexplicably offending my bees. What if its little stubs are stepping on the bee feet? I've been preparing for a future where I have to walk the plant beds with a pollinator stick, a world of silent springs. Could we have a different future? Or would it be worse, even emptier, a robots only future? Mechanical street sweepers clearing abandoned streets, bright lights shining on robot bees pollinating a garden no one eats from. I'd rather have our decaying present with the tree-burst house and the boarded-up church and the bikers opening their throttles. Abruptly, the robot bee takes off and I flinch back. Hui Wen laughs. Her partner, a boy named Joe, who has been sitting cross-legged on the ground with a laptop, says, "He has a mind of his own." "She's a girl," Hui Wen admonishes and waves at the hovering bot. "All worker bees are female." "I don't see how she'll help," I say, though I don't want to hear the lecture again. The bee bot will mimic bee behavior. It'll be tireless without need for food itself. But it's only one more bee. And if one more bee could save a hive, well, wouldn't it have already? A horn honks loudly. An SUV rolls slowly up to the curb. I recognize the car and my ex, Paul, leaning out the window. I turn my back to him. So, what are the next steps? I ask the grad students. If it works, what then? These are their two favorite questions. They start to talk over each other. Paul honks again, longer and louder. He hasn't turned off the car engine. I'm furious, thinking of the pollution he's chugging into the atmosphere. The motorcyclists are shouting from their porch, flicking their hands at Paul to shoo him off. He shouts back at them. I ignore the words. I let it feel like sound, just sound, like the call of birds. Then Paul is repeating my name. Nellie, Nell! Huiwen cuts her eyes nervously towards Paul. Should you do something about that? I go to him. Turn off that engine. It's Jenny. He leans over and opens the passenger door. She's been arrested. Jenny is Paul's stepdaughter from another marriage, actually step-granddaughter. It's a long story involving an older woman and a problematic teenager. Paul adopted Jenny before the divorce. She was in high school when we got married, and I played stepmother, and I never got comfortable with it. Jenny has a kid of her own now, who's just a baby. Where's Alex? Get in, Paul says, and I know I'm going to have to. I hurriedly call George, who lives in the old rectory next to the abandoned church, asking him to chaperone the grad students in their research. George is very reliable. He's a vegetarian trash sculptor. Still, I leave worrying he'll take too long to get here and the grad students will have irreparably disrupted bee society. Huiwen looks betrayed, abandoned as we drive off. Joe is still arguing at her back. Paul doesn't speak until he turns onto Chester Avenue. I have to get to work. Jenny's mom isn't answering her phone, and someone needs to watch Alex. My sitter was supposed to leave 5 minutes ago. So his only options were calling his ex-wives? What about his kid brother? He's always bailing out of jams. But I decide not to argue about it. You're taking me to your place? Are you going to bail Jenny out? His flared nostrils tell me that yes, he is. Sit with Alex until I get away. It's not like you're busy. The community garden is as important as my day job, I say, but he isn't listening. He's looking over his shoulder for a place to merge. The sitter had left Alex in a playpen in Paul's locked bedroom with a baby monitor that presumably started out on the dresser next to the pen. The baby is chewing the monitor like an ice cream sandwich when I come in and smiles proudly over it. I'm very irritated with Paul and his sitter, but I suppose there wasn't much trouble Alex could have gotten into in the time it took to fetch me. Alex is at that age where you'll feel he'll start to walk at any second. Squirmy, a champion crawler. He holds his fist out to me and says, "Mama." It's really weird being in this bachelor apartment that has pots and pans I remember from our marriage. I carry Alex around and he backbends trying to escape. I have to make some calls from work for the garden. We need water and we need fertilizer and we need seeding beds. We always need seeding beds. Alex grabs at my phone hungrily. I set him on the floor to finish the call. He looks aghast. Just when I think he's about to explode into tears, he drops onto his hands, looking in fascination at something under the coffee table. It's one of Paul's shoes. I hand it to Alex and he beats it against the table, laughing maniacally. Could I have stayed with Paul in his endless habit of picking up new dependents? My heart squeezes, but no, he just never understood why I needed my garden. I watch Alex and the sunset and list contingency plans. If the fertilizer doesn't come, if the bees all die, if the tomatoes don't fruit, if. Paul comes back after sunset looking exhausted. Sorry, had to go to the courthouse after work. He goes straight to the fridge for a beer. Are you going to drive me back? I ask. He looks surprised anyone would expect such a thing. He sets down his beer. Can't you spend the night? I have work in the morning. He gives me this look like It's this look that made me divorce him. Family should come first. It did come first. I dropped everything and came here, but I don't say that. I ask, how's Jenny? Her mom showed up and raised hell. She blames me like I can get that kid to do anything. He puts his coat back on and picks up his keys. How is Alex? He's been down since 7. Christ, Nellie, now he's going to be up all night. Paul insists on waking Alex up and bundling up into a lumberjack costume to ride with us. Alex promptly falls asleep in the car seat, so I'm not sure what the point of that was. But Paul was always the one who dealt with kids. He raised his younger brother. His other daughter's in college, all sensible and nothing like her sister, so he does have at least a 50% success rate. The silence is not comfortable. Paul chews his lip. You need to check your messages more. He thinks I'm mad he didn't give me notice before picking me up. I was hours ago before I saw his text that I had missed. It must have come when Hui Wen was unpacking the robot bee. I'm doing important work at the garden. There are people who wouldn't have any fresh produce in their lives without us. We pass empty storefronts and vacant lots, a starving city and her surviving weeds. The back streets in Midtown feel like the survivors of a concentrated bombing campaign. One so slow and thorough, the commuters on Chester never heard a sound. Paul grimaces. Yeah, sorry, I know it means a lot to you, but you are a part of this family. Are we even a family? I know I shouldn't argue. I should accept the apology, say it's not necessary. Instead, I tell him about the bee. It's so tiny. They had to make it light enough not to damage flowers when it walks on them. I think it uses the helicopter to hold itself up. Paul is listening, interested. I forgive him a little, but then he stupidly asks, is that what those 2 Chinese kids were doing there? Okay, Hui Wen is Taiwanese. She mentioned it when I admired her backpack, which she explained was shaped like a Taiwanese cartoon character. I don't know about Joe. He has darker skin and a slight New York accent. It's a research project from Case Western. The community voted to let them test their robot in our garden. It acts like a bee. It seeks out flowers, walks over them, and flies back to the hive. It can even speak bee dance language, tell the other bees where to find sugar. Paul asks, is this to keep us from dying when we kill all the bees? No, it's to help the bees out so they don't die. It's like we built them a live-in helper. Paul glances in the rearview mirror, checking on Alex. Could they build me one? The thing is, honestly, I don't know if it'll help. What's one more bee? We've reached my house. Paul parallel parks in front of it, like he used to when we were married and both lived here. He avoids looking at the house. The garden is 2 blocks away. He's looking in that direction at the church steeple. He says, you might be surprised. Every little bit helps. You never noticed the straw that didn't break the camel's back because somebody picked it up. I suppose this is his way of thanking me. Alex has woken in the back seat. He's looking at my house and bumping his fists together. Brap, he says. Nama. I touch my phone and wallet and take off my seatbelt. I could leave his problems forever now. Would Paul's kids resent my absence? No. Would they notice? Not Alex. Still, I find myself saying, do you need me to watch Alex again? I'm off at 4 tomorrow. I could take him with me to the garden. I can tell by the way Paul's shoulders drop that he'd been gearing himself up to ask just that. It means a lot, he said. I know you don't see it, but every tiny bit you do helps this family survive. I bring Alex to the garden the next day. George shows me where the grad students left their equipment in one of the empty hives, padlocked. George put a salvage stop sign on top for extra rain protection. He fumbles the combination and lets the drawer drop open. He smiles. His middle teeth on the bottom are missing. His gnarled old finger brushes the computer screen. We can talk to them, he says. He's delighted, almost quivering with it. You can tell the bees where to go for food if you need them to go to a particular place. You enter in these coordinates and the robot will interpret them, adjust for the angle of the sun, and do her dance. George has already sent her directly to his black locust. It won't be enough, I say. George straightens, looking hurt. I'm talking about interspecies communication here. That's enough. Alex twists in my arms, so I let him down. He crawls off like a puppy, straight to a newly turned bed, and digs his fat toddler hands into the dirt, immediately jamming a handful in his mouth. It's too cute to object. But I run over and try to gently knock the dirt from his fists. He thinks it's a game and knocks his fists back at me. The motorcyclists putter by, just two this time, and George exchanges a wave with the one in the yellow streamers. There's something fond and lingering in the way the motorcycle slows down, and his partner slows too. They park against the curb and dismount. I ask George, you know them? Went to school with their mother. I wonder if they're all siblings in the motorcycle house. And now the motorcyclist is bowing his head toward me. Is that guy bothering you yesterday? No, I said. It's just my ex. He takes off his helmet and wipes his forehead. You didn't look happy getting in his car, so my sister and her man followed you. Just wanted to let you know, you can count on us. We look after our own. My thoughts about Motorcycle House were unworthy. I stammer a thank you. George and the man shake hands and go through the ritual of re-helmeting and remounting and waving off. The motorcycles sound like bees buzzing their way towards Superior. I try to get Alex to stop eating dirt by picking him up. George takes a bandana out of his back pocket, shakes it, and hands it to me. Don't worry, George says. All kids eat dirt. Doesn't make you a bad mom. I wipe Alex's mouth. Step, Grandma. Mom is mom. George pats my arm. Alex is trying to eat the bandana. His eyes get big then, and he lets go. He stares, and I follow his gaze to a trio of bees, two real, one artificial, flying in a lazy, bumbling line. The fan is invisible as it whirs, and I'm surprised how natural the bot looks next to the others. They get hard to see descending into the flower beds. Which fuzzy dot is she? I don't know. And my heart aches because I haven't seen that many fuzzy dots together over the tomato flowers since last year. Now, for the first time, I feel like this will work. This will help. The garden, the community, the bee, doing her tiny bit for her family. The end.
That was so sweet, Marie.
That's great.
Thank you.
Based on a true community garden,
Lovely.
Oh,
but a fake bee.
For now.
bees. And maybe we will end up with robot ones someday. Kind of worried about the real ones. And they do important work.
Mhm.
Not to, put a big downer after your lovely story. Sorry. I tend to need a breath between the stories to just sort of reset and be ready for a new one. And I believe that this is ending the family-friendly portion of our show. Depending on your family.
Light murder.
All right. Our next reader tonight is Tim Pratt. Tim Pratt is the author of over 30 novels. That hasn't changed since you told me, right? Okay.
No, I've only written a couple since then, so still.
Okay. He gave me this like last week, so I just had to check.
Okay.
The numbers change fast. Most recently, Multiverse Adventures, Doors of Sleep and Prison of Sleep. He's a Hugo Award winner for short fiction and has been a finalist for Nebula, World Fantasy, Sturgeon, Philip K. Dick, Mythopoeic, Stoker, and other awards. That isn't all of them. There are more than that even.
I've lost a lot of awards, yes.
That's not the way I was framing that, Tim. He's also a senior editor and occasional book reviewer for Locus Magazine, which you heard about earlier, because it's awesome and we need to keep it in our community. He tweets incessantly at Tim Pratt and publishes a new story every month for patrons at patreon.com/Tim Pratt. Tim, welcome to Story Hour.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure.
It's cool to be here. Since Thanksgiving is behind us, it's now the winter holiday season. We go from harvest to snow immediately, I've noticed. In California, I suppose it's all kind of conceptual anyway. So I'm going to read the
Still
first...
hear Little Drummer Boy in the...
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did go to some stores over the weekend and it was full press Christmas already, absolutely. So here's more of that. I have my Krampus t-shirt on. I'm going to read the first couple of stories in a series that I've been doing for Drabblecast magazine for a few years now. I do holiday stories for them. There is reference to child endangerment, although none of it is depicted. It's referred to having happened. I am a parent myself, so if that bugs you, totally understand. The first one is called Comfort and Joy. I was in a grubby little bar down in Florida, sitting beside a plastic palm tree decorated with Christmas lights, when I heard a cough and smelled cold ashes. I folded up my list and tucked it into my pocket. Without looking around, I said, "Ruprecht, long time." He sat down next to me wearing an old barn coat, his face bearded and lined, shoulders broad but slumped. He looked much as he had in the old days when we used to run around the German countryside together. "What name are you going by these days?" His voice was rough, a farmhand who'd smoked since he was old enough to lift a pitchfork. "Lately, people call me Bishop." Ruprecht raised a hand and ordered a Pilsner, of course. I was drinking eggnog, 'tis the season, though down in the Keys you wouldn't know it, because some old habits are hard to shake. "You working tonight?" he said. "Every night." "Got your list and all?" "Checked and double checked." "How many are you going to visit?" I shrugged. 2, maybe 3. It's not like my old job. I don't have to do them all in a single night anymore. Ruprecht stared into his beer. He never was the jolly type. That was the part I played in the old days. I was the big, loud, laughing, flashy one, and Ruprecht followed along, playing the heavy. I was the one who said, "Be good," and Ruprecht's very presence said, "Or else." He wasn't the only one I ran with back when the winter nights seemed longer and people look up at the sky more often. I had different companions in different places and different times, but they all had the same job, being scary, offering threats as necessary counterparts to my bribes. These days I do the heavy stuff myself, and I do it better than any of my companions ever did. It's not their fault. They'd had me holding them back, making them follow rules. I didn't have a me to hold myself back, and I didn't even make threats. I just followed through. "How did you find me, Ruprecht?" He scowled into his beer. "We figured you'd be somewhere warm, as far from home as you could get. A lot of us went looking. Even Kay descended from the mountains to help out. We're all worried about you." "I'm fine." "Your ex is worried about you." I snorted. "Sure she is. I don't even remember getting married, Ruprecht. One day I woke up and there she was making cocoa and baking cookies. I took holy orders, or at least I think I did. I shouldn't have gotten married at all. When she turned up, what was it, around 1849? That's when I really started to feel like I'd lost control of my own life. Looking back, things started to come apart a lot earlier, but suddenly having a wife from out of nowhere, new memories slotting themselves into my brain, that shook me. Like a bowl full of jelly, I thought. I sipped my eggnog and wiped some off my mustache. I couldn't tell where I ended and the stories began. I remember slapping heretics, saving prostitutes, rescuing sailors, seeing the pyramids, but it's all dim. The ice is a lot clearer, and the pounding of hammers and the bells. bells on everything that moved, jingling. A diet of mostly cookies and gingerbread. I patted my belly, which wasn't as round as it had been. The things I did now were more physically demanding, and I worked a lot more than one night a year. One day I was drinking some syrupy carbonated shit with some polar bears, and I thought, enough is enough. Time to take control of my life. Make my own narrative instead of being shaped by everyone else's. So that's what I did. I'm making a difference now. Ruprecht sucked air through his teeth. You made a difference before. You brought joy and hope. You're all doing that fine without me. You stepped up. You filled the gap. It takes 20 of us to do what you did, and only half as well. I put down my empty cup of eggnog. Give it a few more centuries of practice, Ruprecht. You'll get there. It's Christmas Eve next week, he said. Is it? I haven't looked at my calendar in a while. You could come back. I nodded. That's true. I could. I won't. He took a long sip of his beer, smacked his lips and sighed. What you're doing now, it's not right. It's not you. I looked straight at him for the first time. I check my naughty list every single day, Ruprecht. My name has never shown up there. Not once. I have to go. Work to be done. Nick, he put his hand on my arm. I shook it off. It's Bishop. I started to walk away, then paused. He meant well, and, well, it's the thought that counts. Hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, really, but I'm fine. You have yourself a happy new year. The sleigh was out back, a shadow hidden among shadows. I'd painted the gleaming silver runners and rails matte black. Rudy was still in the harness, unmoving, antlers raised, nose dark. Criminals use red flashlights, did you know that? They're harder to see than white lights and less likely to give your presence away. Of course, I can see perfectly in the dark, but it's still interesting. None of the others wanted to leave the North with me, and they all disapproved of my plans, except Rudy. She had some experience being pushed around and treated bad and bullied, and I guess she has a little taste for revenge. When the others took flight, she stayed with me. I fed her a handful of maraschino cherries I'd taken from the bar, then climbed into the sleigh and pulled out my list. We're going to Miami. Rudy ducked her head and started forward, and the sleigh lifted into the air, skimming over the dark waters. With the bells cut off, the sleigh was eerily silent. The naughty list just had names on it, but if I ran my finger along a line, I could see every bad thing they'd ever done. Once upon a time, the names on that list mostly committed small offenses, stealing from mom's purse, running off with another kid's bike. Sometimes there were worse things, sure, but the really troubled ones were outside my purview. My job was to nudge, to encourage, and let's be honest, to bribe the ones who could be persuaded into good behavior. When I changed jobs, the list changed with me. I don't visit children anymore. Most naughty kids grow up to be good people, or at least not particularly terrible ones. Some of them, though, some of them only get worse. It's not their fault always. They grew up with challenges they couldn't overcome, shaped by tragedies or neglect, and when they got big, they visited those same indignities on others. Plenty of them could be helped, rehabilitated, set on a better path. I don't visit those. I visit the ones who revel in their cruelty, who do unspeakable things and feel a thrill in those acts, like the grotesque mirror of what I used to feel when I slipped gifts into people's shoes to give them a little joy on a cold morning. Except these people take joy in suffering. I take no pleasure in theirs, but I do find satisfaction in making sure they won't hurt anyone else. Rudy touched down on the roof of a luxury apartment building. I was surprised. The man I was visiting, Roger Malloy, preyed on children, and I'd expected him to live in a house where he could enjoy some privacy. I ran my fingertip over his name lightly because I didn't want to look too close again, and saw he had a cabin in the swamp where he pursued his avocation. Good to know. I walked across the roof and considered the air conditioning unit on top. My skill set, gradually accrued over long centuries, is amazingly well suited to my new line of work. Infiltration is infiltration, whether your goal is leaving gifts or slitting throats. I touched my fingertip to the side of my nose. The world blurred and I was inside the building, beneath a vent in Malloy's dim and twinkling apartment. He had a big Christmas tree, one of those fake silver and white ones, hung all over with tasteful glass ornaments. My most cantankerous old companion, Kay, looked like a monster. Goat hooves, horns, long black tongue, the whole bit. But I learned that among mortals, the monsters seldom showed their true natures so clearly. Malloy was like a rotting tree hung all over with tinsel and garlands. He looked good from the outside, but underneath, he was all woodworm and mold and ruin. I slipped light-footed through his living room, listening at all the doors I passed. Malloy was in his bedroom watching television, chuckling occasionally. Not a creature was stirring, I whispered, crouched by his door. Not a creature. I listened, and soon he was snoring, deep and regular. I eased open the door and looked inside. Malloy was sprawled on his back in flannel pajama pants and an open terry cloth robe, an out-of-shape middle-aged man with a little gray at his temples. Not a physically imposing specimen, but then he liked to pick on people a lot smaller than him. I walked in, making no particular effort to be quiet. He was down deep, seeing visions of sugar plums, which would probably confuse him when he woke up because no one even knew what the fuck a sugar plum looked like nowadays. I shook out my bag, pulling open the drawstring, and slipped the mouth of it over his bare feet. With a deft jerk, I pulled the sack upward, and he vanished inside the bag. I slung the sack over my shoulder, and it weighed nothing at all. That bag could hold enough presents for millions of children without weighing down my sleigh. One evil piece of crap didn't even rate. Rudy flew me to the swamp and wandered off to beat up alligators while I went into the cabin. The shack was as rotting and nasty as Malloy's penthouse was polished and classy. This place was the reflection of his true self. I shook out the bag and he fell in a heap onto the dirty wooden floor, then pushed himself up, bewildered. He blinked at me. What the hell? Roger Malloy, you're on my naughty list. I drew my weapons, a pair of wood carving knives from the workshop. They never lose their edges, and I'd laid other enchantments on them too. I'd even named them because whimsy is also a hard habit to break. The long knife was called Comfort, and the short one was called Joy. I bring you tidings of comfort and joy, I said, even though it's a joke no one but me could understand. At least I started to say it, but then Malloy whipped around and dove past me, quick as a flash. He was more tricksy than he looked, and he knew where everything was in his cabin, including a pistol hidden underneath one of the chairs. I assume I'm immortal, but let me tell you, being immortal just means that you've lived a really long time and you haven't died yet. He pointed the gun at me and fired. I watched the bullet with interest as it shimmered and drifted through the air. One of my best tricks is time dilation. How else do you think I went to so many houses in one night? Bullets travel around 1,700 miles per hour, so I only had to slow down time a few thousandfold to remove the threat. I walked around behind Malloy and crouched, comfort and joy at the ready. I let time return, wincing at the boom of the gunshot and the crash of the window it shattered. I don't like to linger, so I just said, to all a good night, and finished the work. The touch of comfort makes you feel at peace, and the blade of joy reminds you of your happiest moment, so we didn't die hard. Sometimes I wish I had more of a cruel, sadistic streak because it would make the job easier. But then my name might show up on the naughty list, and I don't know what I'll do if that happens. I hope I never find out. I went out to the sleigh. Rudy wasn't back yet. Ruprecht was sitting on a pile of sacks, smoking a pipe. His hands were dirty, and he smelled more like mud than ashes. What are you doing here? I asked. Followed you. I didn't ask how. The companions have their talents too. I took my shovel and did some digging out back, he said. I found some things. I bet, I said. Ruprecht's pipe glowed, but his face was in shadow. We knew what you were doing, but coming down here, seeing it in person, knowing what you stopped tonight, it's different. It's restored my faith. This new story suits you, and it's one you made up yourself. You think you could find a use for an old farmhand like me in your new line of work? I was tempted, but I shook my head. This isn't hitting mischievous children with a bag of ashes or giving them rocks and sticks when they expect candy. I sighed, I don't want you to become what I've had to become. Ruprecht was silent for a long time. You're still looking out for everybody else, aren't you, Nick? I didn't correct him this time. Sailors, merchants, pawnbrokers, ladies of the evening, children, brewers, former thieves, me. I said nothing. It was true. That thing about old habits again. I'll go back north, Ruprecht said. Get your ex off your back. Tell the others you're doing important work. We'll keep handling the other half of the business. I'll practice my jolly laugh. He nodded, solemn like always, and walked off into the dark. I sat there for a while, and then Rudy came back with most of an alligator stuck on her antlers. Once we got that cleaned off, we took to the skies and flew south. There was still dark left after all, and my naughty list is long. It's getting shorter every day, though. So that's the first one about Bishop. I've done a couple more. I don't have time to read them both, but this one's about 15 minutes, maybe. You know, time to read it? Yeah. So this is called Midnight Clear, or How Santa Claus Killed the Sun. So St. Nicholas was a was a bishop from Cyprus, and so I got to thinking about the Mediterranean mythology, and so this is a big mashup of the story. Midnight Clear, or How Santa Claus Killed the Sun. She was a blonde, the kind of blonde to make a bishop bite through his altar cloth. I used to be a bishop, but that was about 1700 years ago, so I swiveled away on my stool, took a handful of maraschino cherries from the jar on the bar, and went back to checking my list. She sat down next to me, and I couldn't help but glance over. Her red dress was tight in all the right places. I'd always liked red, though not for the same reason she did. Got a light, she asked? No, never mind. Ice was your thing, not fire. Yes, Chisiphonie, I recognize you too. I reached behind the bar, grabbed a book of matches, and tossed them in her direction. You could always light your own fires before. Oh, I still can, but it's nice to have help. She sort of undulated on her stool and pouted her lips at me while she lit her cigarette. She drew in smoke, but it never came back out again. Aren't you going to ask what a nice girl like me is doing in a place like this? Nice girls don't come to this place. We were in a grubby little bar in Florida. I finally bought the place last year because I got tired of the bartender making jokes about me drinking eggnog year round. People are more polite when you're the boss. Chisiphonie put her hand on top of mine. I need your help. Your skill at finding people and getting close to them, no matter how many locks they have on their doors. I snorted. Do I look like some kind of private eye to you? A private Nick, she giggled. Or Saint Dick? Please stop it with the flirty stuff, Tizzy. I can see you. Her disguise was good, but my eyes are better. If I looked at her sidelong, her form shimmered, revealing the truth. The endless black of her eyes, the blood dripping from her hands, the live serpent she wore for a belt. That dress wasn't dyed red either. It was stained. She took her hand away and her voice went cold. Not a private eye, no, a private knife, maybe. I heard you gave up giving gifts in favor of cutting throats. Yeah, well, lumps of coal ceased to be an effective deterrent, so I recalibrated my naughty list. I don't punish kids who throw rocks at windows anymore. I punish grown-ups who hurt people and like it. I bring justice, sort of like you and your sisters did before you all semi-retired. Those were the days. Remember when we used to run around Greece together, Nick? Our paths crossed once or twice, but your glory days were over way before my time. Just because I'm immortal so far doesn't mean I've been around forever. I'm not even 2,000 years old yet. Tizzy and her sisters have been around since prehistory, maybe. And from the moment they drew first breath, they devoted themselves to punishing evildoers. Chisiphonie's specialty was avenging murder. Your glory days are just beginning, she said. I have a very naughty person I'd like you to visit. I know you, Tizzy, retired or not, you keep your hand in. I can see the blood on it. Why not pay the visit yourself? The target and I are related, she said. My sisters and I have a strict rule against killing family members. That's what got Orestes in trouble, as I recall. Then it clicked. Wait, a relative? You want me to kill a god? Her eyes went fully black, and when I looked at her straight on, yes, I thought he was beyond my reach forever. But with your help, justice might be served. I groaned. Just as a point of interest, and not because I intend to do anything about it, which god? The same god who told Orestes to kill his mother and brought our vengeance down as a result, one of many crimes to lay at his feet. My classical education was a long time ago, but I remembered enough. You're talking about Apollo, god of healing, medicine, protector of sailors and refugees, which, by the way, were my areas of interest too, when I was more saintly. And all right, he's also the god of the sun. You want me to kill the sun? Aren't you a Christian figure? Killing pagan gods is part of the deal. Mithras is long gone, the great god Pan is dead, and all that. He wasn't dead, though, I said. He was just passed out drunk. As for being Christian, let's just say I've gone through a lot of changes over the years when it comes to moral orientation. As long as I don't see my own name on my naughty list, I figure I'm doing okay. I am still strongly associated with the winter solstice, though. The return of the light in the depths of winter, pushing back the dark, all that stuff. I draw power from that moment and those concepts. Killing the sun, that's almost like attacking myself. She stubbed out her cigarette on the bar. Apollo is nothing like you. He's a monster. Apollo is one of the brightest lights in your dysfunctional extended family, but he invented the lyre. He basically invented medicine. He also invented archery, Chisiphonie said. How many people did that kill? And oh yes, he understood disease and illness, how to cure and cause it. He used to fire magical arrows that spread plague. I didn't know that. He murdered a blood relation and slithered out of judgment by undergoing a purification ritual. He later gained the power to cleanse himself if he committed a crime, putting himself beyond judgment forever. Apollo can self-pardon? I thought only presidents could do that. Tizzy ignored me. He killed children, fomented wars, stalked women until they dove into the sea or turned into trees to get away, cursed Cassandra because she spurned him. His crimes are countless. No offense, Tizzy, but your whole pantheon is a bag of assholes. I'll grant you Apollo sounds awful, but so do all the rest. Why does he get special treatment? Because you thought he was great, Tisiphone said. Everyone does. The shining paragon, the healer, protector of children. He's terrible, and it doesn't matter to anyone. All they see is the light. Even so, I don't know if I can kill the sun. The black in her eyes receded. She stared at the dirty mirror behind the bar, and she suddenly looked old and tired. Shouldn't we demand more from our brightest lights? That cracked some of the ice inside me. I swirled my cup inside. If I say no, you're just going to keep pestering me, aren't you? She grinned. Me and my sisters are good at hounding people. I tossed back the last of the eggnog. How do I do it? I don't think my knives, enchanted or not, are up to the job of killing Apollo. Don't worry, Tizzy said. This time you're the one getting a present instead of giving one. Apollo was not on my naughty list, only mortals end up there. But I can find anyone, and once I looked for him, I knew. He was on a cattle ranch in Argentina, so I went behind the bar to my sleigh and whistled for Rudy. She stayed with me when I left the North Pole, the only one of the reindeer in sympathy with my new mission. She doesn't like bullies, and she has a streak of anger that really needs to be worked out. We shared a handful of peppermints, and then I got her harnessed up. My sleigh is painted black now, and there are no bells. Tisiphone said full dark was the best time to go after a sun god. When we landed in a field full of lowing cattle behind a rambling country estate, it was nearly midnight. I told Rudy to forget about me if I wasn't back by dawn and crept up to the house. You learn to move quietly when you spend most of your career infiltrating the homes of children suffering from anticipation-induced insomnia. I traded my red suit for black and grays, powdered my white beard with coal dust, and tried to think shadowy thoughts. I looked at the house with its 4 chimneys and picked one. I put my finger to the side of my nose and the world flickered. I reappeared in front of a roaring fire in some kind of den or study, all dark wood and mounted animal heads. An old man in a white robe sat slumped in an armchair, an art book devoted to photos of trees in his lap. He looked up at me. Oh. Okay. Oh, he said, isn't it a little early for you? I thought it was November. The children are, no, I don't have any children right now. Sometimes I adopt. He trailed off, blinking, sleepy. Sun gods aren't at their best at night. But me, I thrive in the small hours. I usually dispatch the people on my naughty list with twin wood-carving knives named Comfort and Joy, enchanted to send them off without pain. But Tisiphone had supplied the weapon for this job. She gave me a shard of jagged glass, as long as my forearm and as black as the coldest, darkest night, fastened to a hilt of ice. After some thought, I named the knife Midnight Clear and whispered a little incantation of my own into it. This blade wouldn't bring peace. It would bring clarity. In his final moments, Apollo would see what he'd done and why this was the ending he deserved. So listen, I cheat. I can slow down time. I can flash across space. I am silent. I am swift. I do not have trouble dispatching the naughty. I'd never tried to kill a god before, though, and when I slowed time, he just sped up to match me. Instead of dying quick, he turned into fire. His chair burst into flames under him as he stood up, and his brightness was so tremendous I squeezed my eyes shut against it. I summoned all the cold at the center of me, all those years in the Arctic, all the blizzards and hail and ice, and none of it mattered because you can throw snowballs at the sun all day and the sun doesn't notice. I would have turned to steam right there if I hadn't struck with Midnight Clear. I suspected it was an artifact of Erebus or Nyx, some real primordial darkness shit. I plunged the blade into Apollo's heart. His fires went out instantly and he became an old man with a knife in his chest. His eyes were filled with horror at the last, not at me, at himself. He turned to ashes and the blade fell. When Midnight Clear struck the floor, it shattered and sublimated to shadow. Nothing remained but the hilt. I sat down and watched that melt too. It took a long time, but I had enough worry to keep me occupied. There were other sun gods, of course. It takes a pantheistic pantheon to make the world go round. I knew the sun kept shining after Mithras died long ago. I didn't expect eternal night to fall, but I couldn't be sure. I had to wait until dawn. If the night persisted, well, there are ways to call back the sun. Old ways, ones that involve sacrifice. I'd burn myself as fuel for the salvation of the world if it came to that. The light came in the east-facing windows right on schedule, and the ashes on the floor swirled, and suddenly there was a woman there, in a dress the rosy color of dawn, with long hair to match. She stood up and her hair shifted, color flowing through it like light, and somehow I just knew her hair would grow brighter all day, and then fade into the reds and oranges of sunset in the evening and turn black at night. She was beautiful because the sun is always beautiful, even when it's cruel. What happened? She said. You used to be somebody else. I was still sitting on the floor. He died and you were born in his place. It's that Sol Invictus thing, the unconquerable sun, phoenix from the ashes. Your kind are usually reborn. Sometimes you just look a little different on the other side. Her eyes shone. Of course they did. I wasn't very nice, was I? I remember so clearly, but it feels so far away. You were complicated, I said. But you had a lot of centuries for the bad stuff to build up. I waited to see if she'd strike me down. She could. She could melt me in an instant, and I had no weapon to stop her. Instead, she reached down and offered me her hand. Maybe I can be better this time. You can call me Dawn for now. People call me Bishop. I let her help me up. Her touch was warm. Her smile was warmer. Earlier, I said the ice inside me cracked. This time, I'd go so far as to say that something kindled. Being alone is kind of my thing, except for Rudy, who doesn't talk. I focused on the blood and justice in the inside of my own head. The work was important, and I'd gotten used to my solitary life, but that didn't mean I actually liked it. I cleared my throat. So, Dawn. She looked at me, clear-eyed, interested. I said, how would you like to see the northern lights? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Those were fun.
Oh, good. Glad you liked
I
it.
feel like we've started off the holiday season in a much nicer way
That's what I'm here for.
than the commercial way.
That's right.
So thank you.
Yeah. There's a third one on Drabblecast called How Lovely Are Your Branches, and it has Krampus in it. So, yeah.
Tim, we got to get you back in the holiday season every year.
Sure, happy.
This could be a tradition.
I got a lot of holiday stories. My wife and I also do a holiday story for podcasts almost years. We collaborate. I often will do them for my Patreon. Heather Shaw, my wife, and I actually have a collection of our holiday stories that we put out a few years ago.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
Next year, make a date. Maybe you and Heather can come back together.
That would be fun. That would be really fun.
Yeah, we have C.S.E. Cooney and Carlos Hernandez reading together sometimes, and that's fun. So, wow. I mean, this was just one of these evenings that was put together by having two writers we like, reading what they like, and we had stories that were completely different, but really rather delightful in their own ways. So thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Next week is going to be its own thing again. Our readers are Barbara A. Barnett. That's the redheaded Barbara Barnett, not the one with the hats. And Rebecca Gomez Farrell, who I don't think I've ever seen in a hat, but she is fabulous. I recommend checking storyhour2020.com the day of the reading for any announcements or changes. Doesn't happen often. And it's also a good place, that storyhour2020.com, to learn about who's going to be reading next and see if you need to massage your schedule a little. You can watch any programs you may have missed, watch this one a few more times, whatever tickles your fancy, on the Story Hour page on Facebook. So Tim, Marie, thank you both so much for sharing your stories with us tonight.
Thanks.
Blast, thank you.
For inviting me. It was awesome.
Always, we hope you'll both come back. And I'd like to thank my absent but returning next week co-host, Daniel Marcus. And I'd like to thank all of you who are here now, all of you who are joining us in the future, time shifted anonymously, for being part of Story Hour. Good night.